So, hello everyone. Welcome to the RPDL Diamond Division Platinum or Diamond Division Power Rankings. My name's Zack, and once again, I'm joined by Julien and Evan. And it's going to go the same as Platinum. We're going to discuss every team one by one, very briefly, and explain our point value that we gave it. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So up first, we have Alex coaching the Blaziken Blazers. So at first glance, this team, pick one, round one, pick one, they had Calyrex Shadow, which was a very interesting decision. There's so many picks to choose from. Is like the first overall pick. I couldn't imagine making that decision. I've never actually been in that seat before. But this team varies in speed. It goes up from base 150 and trickles kind of all the way down to, it looks like 29 with Musharna, which is super cool to see. So it has a lot of options with Trick Room or faster paced builds. It's very offensive though. It's very close to a hyper offense team. If not, it might be considered one. It does have a couple bulkier sets, but what do you guys think?
I have no idea how this team works together, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, there's so many individually strong Pokemon. I just don't see them working together, but like, they can't just attack and KO the opponent. I don't really need to see synergy, I guess. But yeah, the weaknesses, resistances are well spread out. It's just a lot of 4x weaknesses, which I hate to see, which kind of makes it a little bit easier for an opponent to prepare against it. But yeah, maybe I just completely overlook amazing synergies in the team here. But yeah, it looks definitely strong.
To me, this is a respectable draft strategy coming off of a turn 1 Calyrex Ghost pick, because historically everyone in RPDL, if you're on the first seat, you're kind of obliged to draft like Magiana, or in this case, Zacian, right? So I think this is respectable, choosing the Calyrex Ghost, and knowing that the Calyrex Ghost cannot Dynamax, and I would say building a very solid team around it. This is the third most highest base stat average total, 544. I'm just going to jump quickly back. And then the stats I have here is that the second place is Air from Pearl Division. Yeah, so watch out for that 2 days later. Okay, so my points for this team is that first of all, you can see that there is no fake out, no tailwind, no good switch-ins to Ghost, Dark and Ice, unless you are Volcanion, and so there might be a bit of clash over there. However, I think like I said in the Platinum power rankings, this team kind of gives the coach a lot of leeway to go creative and maybe Dynamax something you never see before, or come up with some unique tech or unique weakness policy procs that can catch your opponent off guard. Right. So talking about like the draft, right? As the first pick in season 3, like last season, right? I was the first pick, and I could feel like this coach had a bit of uncertainty being the first pick in terms of his wheel picks. You can see like Volcanion plus Among Us together, they don't really realistically pair well together, but he kind of needs to pick a good Mythical Mon and a good form of redirection, so they pick these two. And then Landorus and Dragonite, what? Both 4x weak to Ice, then why do you pick both together? But I think he really wants some form of like Dragon to complete a core, and Landorus for Intimidate. Then I would say like Musharna and Copperajah, that kind of makes sense, but it's not the most optimal, because I know that Musharna does not have any moves to proc a potential policy on Copperajah. Right. But I would say that this is just overall just understandable, because drafting, you really want to try and fill up your cores or pick up important tools into your toolbox. One cool thing that this team has is like I said, the surprise tags, and I would say very important, like very useful range of coverage moves. Coming from Volcanion, it does get Haze. Coming from Dragonite, it does get Aqua Jet. And then Calyrex Shadow, like something you don't use. I mean, less common moves would be Mud Shot, would be like Snarl and Will-O-Wisp, right? because you sometimes might think that the Calyrex would just go full offensive, and Audino gets a lot of random coverage moves. And one small note is that I'm not sure if it's intentional, but Calyrex is weak to Sucker Punch, but this team managed to pick up one of the best Sucker Punch users in a Shifu single, so props to them for picking it up in the 8th pick.
That's actually, it's pretty crazy. And then I did want to state too, this is one of the very few drafts we ever really see in our league in general. They don't have a water type at all. And I think water is one of the.
No, they do it. I mean, Volcanian's water.
I missed it. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, scratch that idea then. But yeah, I was also going to touch on Volcanian's just an absolute beast. So I rated this team a 5 solely because I think it, like you said, it has the creative possibilities. I just don't know if it has enough tools that it could have had to do well. Volcanian's a beast, but it needs the right support to definitely to abuse, I guess you could say. And I don't know if this team fully has that, but I'm interested to see what they do.
Yeah, well said. Hey, welcome, Pork Boy. Okay, wait, let me quickly change it to the second team. Alright.
Alrighty, so up next we have Pocoyo coaching the Amigo del Perro. Very wholesome team name. Me and Julien were talking about that. Super funny. You guys can Google translate that if you're curious. But round 1 Calyrex Ice. So this is the standard Torkoal Venusaur that, as we discussed in Platinum. Right off the back. So after Calyrex Ice, they got pick 2 and 3 Torkoal Venusaur. Super dominant Sun Core, as always. Very specially defensive team right here. It's even got some physical bulk too with Calyrex and Torkoal. As far as speeds go, this team's very slow aside from Bolton and Jirachi. But Bolton, it has a really good toolbox. It's just so absurdly frail, and it doesn't have it's basically a watered down Raichu, essentially. It doesn't have Lightning Rod or Fake Out, but it has a lot of the other moves, and it's even faster than Raichu, so it can be good. What are your guys' thoughts?
Sun making the fire moves against Jirachi, Calyrex, and obviously Venusaur stronger is a tiny bit awkward, but I don't think it should be a problem there. 3 really strong Trick Room setters that all can funnily enough imprison as well. Then the Clefairy is there, which is a fantastic pair with whatever you want to max in that game. The Tailwind with Manibus, it's just a really underutilized Pokemon. Although Snarl, it's just super valuable, I think. Unfortunately, only the Boltund and the Venusaur are really fast, but with Nuzzle and also the Tailwind from Manibus, you have enough speed control, I think. If you don't want to set up what's it called, Trick Room in one of the games. Also, for Trick Room Mirrors, you basically have one of the slowest Pokemon in Torkoal. The team looks strong.
Yeah, so I was going through everybody's power ranking, looking through all the teams, and I saw this team. Hello, another Venuco no skill team. But in this case, there are a few similarities with Almond's team that we saw in Platinum. Quick plug! We have a Platinum power rankings. Do check out that video as well. So the similarities is that Venuco and an Ice Horse, but in this case, Calyrex Ice that cannot Dynamax, whereas in Almond's team we see that Celestial. At the same time, they also have some form of redirection, and to me, this team is one of the most one-dimensional and stereotypical teams you can see that come out from a draft, because all these mons are just so common and so widely used, and they get so much results from VGC. Therefore, we really cannot discount the team, and there's always room in a draft league environment for flexibility and creativity, and more importantly, mind games from a Venusaur league. So the Clefairy, I feel, on this team would be a good anchor, because I foresee that this Strength Guard can actually come in clutch for a couple of times. Julien did mention that some mons kind of clash in terms of being weak to fire in Sun, and somehow maybe with Strength Guard they could survive and catch some people off guard if they made a lot of calcs beforehand. Then one major downfall of drafting all these common VGC strategies is that they can get very predictable in team preview, especially when you can only bring 6 out of these 10 mons. So I would say trying to activate offensive modes from Bolton and Jirachi, sometimes it might seem obvious to experienced players. Like you show up with Toko, Calyrex, Trick Room mode, and then suddenly you have a Bolton and a Jirachi. Then the question is, how is your team going to go fast? And if experienced players kind of get the hang of it, they can kind of tell that, oh, maybe you want to max Bolton to capitalize off of something like Strong Jaw or not max Bolton, I guess, but just go with Strong Jaw. And then in terms of max, maybe go with like the competitive option. Right. Then last thing is that this coach needs to work hard and test the matchup, like I've said earlier, to always discover beforehand the best answers that your opponent can prepare for Vino, Ko, Clefairy, and Calyrex Ice, these 4 as a core, and then plan accordingly. Maybe you can get one step ahead of them to win games more comfortably.
No, for sure, I agree with all that. And then, not that it really matters because it's not seen too often on Sun Cores, but my comment was about water types from the last team that actually is valid for this one. This team does not have a water type. But yeah, with it being a Sun team, it's not necessarily like the worst thing in the world. And then they have Calyrex Ice to deal with like pure ground types. So it's, I don't know.
Lumeris in chat says, take out your safety goggles, guys. We're going frog hunting.
Yeah, it's very, very, very accurate. Sleep powder Venusaurs. I haven't seen it too often in draft, but it's very possible.
True. Okay, next team.
Alrighty, yep. Up next we have Chad, coaching the Phoenix Solgaleos, and just to state, he is the Pearl champion from last season, so he upgraded to Diamond. And yeah, he had a fantastic undefeated 8-0 season with Kyogre. So this season he's doing something a little different. You can see round 1 pick was Magearna. So yeah, back-to-back absurd like first round picks for him. 2 powerhouse Pokemon he's gotten the chance to use, which is very fortunate. But yeah, paired with the Yveltal, which is pretty cool, kind of like the complete opposite typings. And then he has the staple like VGC Colossal, Dragapult Core. Morgan for like screens and fake out, stuff like that. This team, it's very mixed. I think it can do a little bit of everything. It's offensive, it's bulky, and the places where it's needed. It does have redirection with Tangela. It even has the Azumarill if it wants to Dynamax and use like huge power. Sap Sipper can come in handy depending on the matchup, or it could even Aqua Jet into Colossal for very minimal damage since its base attack stat's not that great without huge power. But what are your guys' thoughts?
Such a versatile team with speeds going from 30 up to 142, evenly spread out. It has Trick Room, it has redirections, unfortunately non-stab, but it has fast and strong max airstreams, Fake Out, Tailwind, Shadow Tech. It has Magearna, which I would just count as its own threat category. It's so strong. The weaknesses and resistances are evenly spread out, with Vilvali even just used where needed to resist some more.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think this might be one of the hardest teams to prep for in this division. It has such strong options that also really differ from each other, like Colossal, Dragapult, Magearna, just require different prep. Looks super strong.
Nice. This is I think the only team with 4 fairy types, but then I think don't let that mislead you, because I think these mons, sometimes they don't really share common weaknesses, and I think they can do very well. Then not forgetting that Dragaco like combination, it certainly deserves mention. I think looking at the lineup here, you can see like 3 little Pokemon below, like Kotorita, Morgrem, and Tangela. I think they kind of do different jobs, but it's sort of like you prepare your army, like you have maybe 5 from the top 7 slots. Like you certainly bring a Colossal sometimes, or Dragapult sometimes, then you can choose one of these little soldiers below, and then you give them an Eviolite. It certainly helps the team, and it can go very far. It can pay a lot of dividends.
Right.
So I think they don't really sort of clash with each other for that Eviolite slot, you can always choose one to come because the rest of the mons are already so threatening from the get-go. I think it's commendable just to draft both ways to activate Colossal because it really puts the emphasis on this potential threat, right, of Ko during the preparation phase. I think what's missing from this common trope of a Dragaco team in Series 9, right, is that this team is missing that grassy terrain setter to immediately put pressure on your opponent in the middle of Colossal's dynamics. One important thing about Colossal's dynamics, if you let Colossal get off 2 dynamics moves, you almost always can win the game because you kill potentially 2 mons, forcing their 2 mons to come behind, forcing a 4v2 and using that residual damage to always chip your opponents down and win the game. And to me, Tapu Koko would be very interesting, but it kind of clashes with Azumarill because it makes Azumarill's potential mono weakness, right? If it has Sap Sipper, it's only weak to electric and poison, but then poison is less seen. Then other people can just use the electric terrain to their advantage. Then it also clashes with Tangela, because Tangela cannot freely threaten a Sleep Powder. Then I think this is the same case as the previous team. If you sort of test the matchup and bait your opponent to Dynamax together with your Colossal, but you don't Dynamax your Colossal and you switch it out to let it come back in, play defensively, this team certainly has the options to do that. Or even has that very like it's seen in some Chinese teams, Azumarill Colossal, then you hard switch Colossal into the Shadow Tagmon, Golf, and then you go for Perish Song, and the opponent sort of is caught off guard, it goes for a random Max Geyser or Max Quake, but it never kills the Torita. Yeah, this is a combination that is quite successful in VGC, and it can certainly steal games.
Right.
There's so much pressure. There's so much pressure from turn 1 Colossal and Dragapult, right? Even the Dragapult can Dynamax, so this team has so many options to sort of bait out the opponent's Dynamax, or even come up with creative strategies like Perish Trap to win games.
Right. Yeah, overall, so this is very, very diverse and super strong draft. And like you said, like having 4 fairy types, it honestly means nothing here because it's really only the poison weakness that Chad has to worry about. It really, all the other fairy types except for Morgrim are neutral to Steel, so they don't actually, Steel doesn't really do much to his team whatsoever. And like you said as well, poison's not that common of a type. It's usually just a coverage move rather than like a stab usage. So yeah, I think just type wise and looking at the type chart, this is a very well drafted team. So I think it's very deserving of like an 8.5 from myself.
I want to see Harry Silvally at one point.
Yeah.
Just for the full 5.
Mm-hmm.
or even like someone mentioned in chat, right? Just Explosion, Silvally together with Dragapult.
Or with Migiana too, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I gave it a bit lower, I guess, because like this team can seem quite predictable, and it does require the coach to kind of carry the team because everyone is going to come prepared for your Colossal. So if you get careless, then you might lose games pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious as the previous user of Magearna to see how Magearna and Yveltal works, because I almost drafted Yveltal, but I went with Magearna Lunala.
Interesting. Did not know that. But
Yeah, I almost drafted Yveltal.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, moving on. Up next, we have returning coach Handy Siren coaching the Macon Mudsdales. This is his 4th season. He's been here since the very start. Super cool to see him back once again. And every single season, it's a round 1 Mudsdale pick, no matter what. So he,
respect.
So he ensures that he gets the mascot, and he makes it. He tries to make it work. Very similar draft though. I've noticed he has a kind of draft pattern that he does every season. So like Entei's been on 3 of his teams. Cincino at the very bottom, that's been on almost all of his drafts as well. So there's a couple things that he just can't stray away from, that's okay. They're very good Pokemon. Speed tiers are pretty diverse as well. I mean, very like upper 90s, low to mid like 100s to 115s and whatnot. Meowstic, phenomenal support Pokemon. I think it can benefit this team quite well, honestly. Very offensive and like bulky mix. It's a good set of Pokemon. I think it has a lot of potential threats. I think Xerneas paired with Genesect's pretty interesting as far as typings go. They kind of cover each other. Genesect being like immune to poison and like resist steel and whatnot. So what are your guys' thoughts?
He doesn't just try, he makes it work. Over those 3 seasons, he got Mudsdale to number 7 kill leader in Diamond with 44 kills and 26 deaths. It's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take his word for this being a good team centered around Mudsdale, because that's just all he drafts.
Mm-hmm.
It looks solid type-wise, it has pretty fast mons, with decent speed control. He just has one kinda awkward trick rod setup with Meowstic because it's so frail.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe get late, but still frail too.
Oh, that could be. You're right. That's possible. Yeah. One last point I have about the team. It's pretty cool because I didn't know how Dragon gets beat up. I just looked it up earlier just to be sure.
Oh, wow.
With 2 potential targets for it in Mudsdale with what's it called, Stamina, or the Gallade. So that's pretty cool.
Chat saying the good old Chinchino Mudsdale.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So his popular strategy is Bullet Seed. Bullet Seed into the Mudsdale to proc stamina and weakness policy both.
Yeah, and then straight up Dynamax, since you don't have to invest so much in attack. You can just invest in pure bulk out of Mudsdale's super impressive like HP stat. Here are my notes. I have a lot to say for this draft. I think Handy Siren really knows what he's doing, especially always going for that Mudsdale on the turn 1 pick, right? But you never underestimate it because it opens up to so many possibilities, and here we see the result. Oh, I'm going to switch it back to his draft order. You can see the result of ending up with something so good like Genesect and Xerneas, and then Genesect, Xerneas and Hydreigon form some sort of unorthodox but pretty effective Fairy Dragon Steel core, right? Then I feel like at some point in the middle of the draft, if Handy Siren was really gunning for Genesect throughout the draft, I would say that this execution is extremely well played, because you can see from the type chart here that he did collect a few mons that are resistant to fire before picking up the Genesect, allowing for very good switch-ins in case the Genesect seems to be in trouble to try and execute a turn 1 Dynamax. You can never underestimate Dynamax Genesect, especially when it gets the correct download boost, correct? Yeah, so I would say the Fantasy and Firewater Grass core of this draft is extremely well constructed, and there is an impressive this is an impressive example of a stereotypical good stuffs team with great potential to Dynamax almost every mon. But I kind of have the feeling that Handy Siren will Dynamax the Mudsdale more often than not. If executed well, like Zack said, Meowstic is definitely going to work wonders, and it will almost always be the glue of this team, with very good supports and very good support options and like some element of surprise in terms of trick. And furthermore, there's so much room for creativity, and the general bulk of this team just allows for the coach just to have fun, experiment, and do certain like crazy, wacky modes. Even beat up into a potential Gallade is actually quite potent, because Gallade does have a wide variety of useful coverage moves that really can catch your opponent off guard. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I do want to touch on before we move on. It's not relevant to like his team building whatsoever, but draft order wise, Xerneas went completely unpicked this entire draft for the Diamond Division up until round 9. So he landed a round 9 Xerneas, which kind of caught me off guard because it's usually one of the more sought after restricted within our league.
Right, waiting so patiently just to end up with such a solid one. You know, it cannot Dynamax, but it still does so much work. Wow, that's so impressive and so well played. I feel like downfalls, I guess, because like the fastest mon that the opponent would realistically need to prep for will be the Entei. So I think this can be exploitable in terms of coming up with EV spreads. Sometimes you don't have to be brave. Sometimes you don't have to be timid or jolly. You can be modest or adamant. And then lastly, there's no Tailwind, there is no Intimidate, and I would say no reliable trick room setter, like Julien pointed out. So this could be slightly detrimental to the team, and this would require the coach to put in some work to work the matchup and be prepared for these upcoming threats, like a hyper-offensive one, right? That can easily a hyper-offensive team that can easily set up Tailwind to try and sweep, or something that's very physical that you don't have Intimidate to cover for.
Yeah, and all of those things missing, that kind of makes up my score of a 6. I think this team could be. It's a very strong team, but yeah, I think it's missing certain things that can give it more of an advantage in a matchup. So yeah, he kind of has to work harder rather than like smarter or like strategical. I don't know.
What about you, Julien? How come? Why do we see a 4 here?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, and the platinum ratings, I haven't said it here. Like, I started by figuring out what my favorite team was and what my least favorite team was, and gave them a score of 10 or 1 respectively, and then just spread the others like in between that range. So that's why it has a really low score. But the team looks decent. One thing I forgot to mention: if Mudsdale really maxes most of the games, Tailwind doesn't really make sense on the team. So Chinchino, especially with the Scarf or something, and after you is even better there. But yeah, I don't know how he actually maxes Mudsdale, but Tailwind doesn't really help it much.
That's cool.
Yeah, and something he used to do, I want to say that all 3 of the last seasons, is he would draft like a Alolan Raichu or something, and he would actually just speed swap with the Mudsdale rather than run Trick Room, but I don't think anything has speed swap, unless Meowstic gets it, but I'm not certain on that.
No, I don't think so.
I know I get
You only get skill swap.
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot to mention like Laurentiis shoutouts, because Laurentiis is one of my favorite
super
BGC
cool
mons, because that kind of further discourages the opponent from going for stat reduction moves. Like, I would say Intimidate doesn't matter, right? Because Entei and Mudsdale, they kind of shrug off Intimidate. Then I would say like moves like Max Phantasm or Max Darkness, the opponent will kind of have to think twice before clicking it.
Yeah, this team's very.
I'm quite happy that we always. I'm quite happy we always meet in the middle. I always
funny.
offset Julian's ring.
That's alright. It balances out. Alrighty, up next we have Kirky coaching the Skary Skrelps. So this team is one of the few times Dusclops does get drafted here, and it's I feel like it's oftentimes paired with Melmetal. I could be mistaken, but I think I've seen those two paired together a couple times. But they have again, this whole division so far, I believe, has had very diverse speed tiers, going up from 130 with Eternatus all the way down to 15 with Foongus and 25 with Dusclops and so on and so on. It's also very diverse with attack, like offensive pressure and defensive bulk here. But yeah, between restricted and mythical picks, 2 very bulky Pokemon, and very strong and difficult to deal with. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think with the team name, I think it really does look scary.
Right.
It has a nice speed range, goes all the way up from 130 down to 25. I would love to see a 50 or 60 base speed somewhere in between there. But yeah, it has a few really strong setup threats. Like, a lot of these Pokemon can carry weakness policy. It has Belly Drum, Curse, even Beat Up. Trick Room I would kinda count as setup.
Right.
Yeah, it's really hard to prepare for everything there.
Yeah.
It has some really strong support options that are somewhat frail, like the Fungus and Sneasel. There's some strong weaknesses if I recall correctly. Oh yeah, they're fire somewhat and fighting.
Yeah.
But he always has some switching for those types.
Yeah, I really.
If you just have, good positioning.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say, I really think Moltres is I think it's probably one of the better Pokemon in my opinion on this team. It's paired with some things you don't often see it paired with, but I think next to Sneasel for like Ice Shard weakness policy, fake out pressure if you want a nasty plot setup, or Clefkeep, if you put Moltres behind screens, I think it can take hits even better, and then that increases your chances of proccing Berserk without taking too much damage. So I do think, and then max Airstream after like Thunder Waves from Klefki or something to dominate the speed like within the field. So yeah, I think Moltres actually plays a really vital role in this team. I'm gonna
chime in and say Like instead of just fake out nasty claw or ice shard weakness policy, you can easily use Sneasel to go for a non-prankster fake tears. That is extremely scary.
Oh yeah, that as well. Yeah, that's a little more creative as well for sure. Yeah.
Then my one-liner for this team is it's generally bulky, but a team that kind of wants to lean towards Trick Room, and this team hates grass type with a passion. You can see that crazy amount of grass resistances 6, and then no weaknesses to grass at all. I think that's because they drafted quite solid mons in terms of Moltres, Eternatus, Arcanine, and Sneasel. Sneasel is my most favorite VGC mon of all time. So I kind of vibe with this team. I kind of know exactly what Sneasel can or cannot do. I think it's also quite apparent if you draft a Sneasel trying to proc policy maybe on Moltres or the Justified on the Arcanine, you are always going to fall for this trap of being very scared of your opponent's rock type moves because you are really compounding on that rock type weakness with Sneasel and always a friend together with Sneasel.
Right.
So this team almost always has to rely on Melmetal when going up against these threats. So the opponent will always prepare a very strong oppressive rock type mon or a mon with rock type coverage against you. So I feel like this team does have some leeway to adjust in games 2 and 3, maybe set up Trick Room instead to activate the Dynamax Melmetal. This team needs to commit on a certain Arcanine stat week per week and never turn back because like the Arcanine set is extremely exploitable in a best of 3 situation. If you figure out that it's justified, then you just go hard on your Intimidate mons. But if you figure out that it's Intimidate, then it can be just a support set. Then you can sort of ignore the Arcanine if it doesn't do too much disruption, and then it has the all my friends are dead syndrome. Then on a similar vein, this team has what I call the 6 PSS, the 6 Pokemon slot syndrome, because a lot of these mons are very viable, and there are a couple of support mons at the same time. So it's quite tough for this coach, in my opinion, to come up with the correct 6 mons to bring into the matchup that can sort of deal with everything that the opponent can bring against you. So I would say a decent rule of thumb is to never commit to more than 3 support mons unless you have a really solid game plan, and that's very crazy to put all your eggs in a certain basket. Like you put all your eggs in a what's that item? The one that makes Snorlax go first, like Custard Berry Snorlax, right? Then you put all your eggs in that basket, and then you bring the fungus in the back just to support it. You bring the Sneasel to fake out something like that's coming in. Then the last thing I want to say is, where is it? Yeah, the obvious downside of this team is that it doesn't have that immediate offensive pressure on turn 1. You always almost want to do some form of setup or some form of self-proc, so you can fall prey to teams that have follow me or in some sense like fake out or a mode that is hyper offensive and then can just go fast and kill your mons before they even have a chance to set up.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, overall rating wise, this is a phenomenal team in my opinion. I think it has a lot of options. We didn't really touch on Mantine too much. I think it's an interesting water type. For a low tier pick with like a water immunity and whatnot, it's okay. I think it does the job for the most part. But
yeah, I can see a potential Sneasel Rain Dance plus Mantine Airstream and Step Airstream, so that's quite reliable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, super cool draft.
Okay, I got a unique spicy tag of the day. Moltres Gala gets access to U-turn. Then you can U-turn into weakness policy, pickpocket, Sneasel. Then you give Moltres the Eviolite, and then you Dynamax Sneasel. But that's purely for memes.
Oh, that's funny.
That's beautiful.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I love Sneasel too much.
Oh wait, back to what Zack mentioned earlier. He said that multiple times the metal has been paired with what was it called? Dusclops, which I wondered a few times before already. I wonder if it's just because first it's slower, second Bulldoze, and third Ally switch for the fighting moves. Like, James did it season 3 and Almonds did it season 2. And I never thought about it, but it probably makes sense, like as a fitting partner.
It sounds like a very reliable strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Alrighty.
that's what it is. Just
Up next, we have Moftado coaching the Ligma Ludicolos. This logo gets me every time. Round 1 pick, though. Victini followed up by Zamazenta Hero. Which I'm curious, actually. I want to say across all 4 divisions, people all opted to draft the hero form rather than the crown form, which is the first time I think it all the past 3 seasons. I don't think hero's ever been drafted, so I'm curious to see what the difference is. But yeah, this is your stereotypical Rain Celesteela team. Super strong core. It's not Kyogre or anything, but I think it'll still be fairly offensive and still apply it just the same amount of pressure. It's another very balanced team speed-wise. It doesn't go nearly as slow, so they could possibly struggle versus a heavy Trick Room mode. I think they have 2 Hustle Mons, I want to point that out, paired with Talonflame and Tailwind. So yeah, this is a very, very offensive team. What are your guys' opinions on it?
Yeah, Victini in Rain is always a little bit awkward in my opinion, because its strongest move gets weaker, but Rain plus Celesteela are absolutely best friends. It's only missing a Lightning Rod somewhere, which would be great. It literally makes Celesteela unkillable. Impossible, you can't outgo it anymore. Victini makes Durant and Dracozolt late game out of max even better, because they might actually hit stuff with Hustle and Victory Star. Lampin is a pretty nice value pick for 2 points for Trick Room or Prison Trick Room, which this team can use.
Oh yeah.
Also, about the Summer Center, I'm also super surprised, but maybe it's just because of the points. In Season 2, the hero was 1 point more expensive. Then in Season 3, the crown was 1 more expensive, and now it's even 2 more expensive. Maybe they just really wanted those 2 more points.
Right.
And it's 10 points faster.
Well, technically here, if we look at the draft order page of the sheet, they have 2 points remaining according to the docs. So they could technically upgrade it if they had that decision. So I'm not entirely
they even have the Rain to protect it, so it wouldn't be too much of a drawback if they were afraid of the Steel type, to be honest.
I've been so this is the one that's pure fighting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've been trying it out in Series 10, and I don't give it the Rusted Shield. That makes it 10 points faster in speed, so kind of can catch your opponent off guard and pull off very quick close combats, or even Howl or Snarl to support your team. So I guess let's just see how things play out, right? I'm also very curious to see how it works, because I've had 0 success in Series 10 with with Zamazenta.
Right.
Please don't use it. 0 out of 10, don't recommend. Okay, so my my points for this team is, remember the previous team hates grass types? This team hates steel types even more. I don't understand why. Oh my god.
I do want to
really.
I want to follow you up with that and state that it has 8 steel resistances and 7 grass resistances. Almost this entire draft resists steel. 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
that's absurd.
So a few, other than all the points about hustle with Talonflame support, I can find a few weaknesses in this team. There's a big warning here. They don't have Fairy type, and then this can be dangerous because the team could fall prey to strong fighting and dark type mons. Then at the same time, they also don't have a dark type, and that makes you extremely susceptible to all prankster moves, and you don't have a very good answer into opposing ghost types, Then so this glaring weakness to ghost and dark, to me, is very scary. Sometimes your bulk can only get you that far. If a very strong ghost type mon can steamroll with max phantasm defense drops, then you might be in some trouble, and you really do need to use Talonflame well in terms of speed control. And then what's up with Victini and Rain teams? This is 2 for 2, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
The first one was Kyogre, Victini, and then now we see Politoed, Victini.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And one quick thing about in terms of Lightning Rod, sometimes you can sort of catch your opponent off guard with Volt Absorb Dracozolt as a switch in, but to me that's not reliable in a best of 3 scenario.
No, for sure, I agree with that. Dracozolt does learn Meteor Beam though, so fun fact, I want to see it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think Meteor Beam, I've tried it before.
Mm-hmm.
It can OHKO Incineroars that don't have special defense
Right.
investment. And it can also OHKO Arcanines.
Yeah. No, it's super
Yeah,
cool.
because the special attack stat from Dracozord is pretty respectable. It's 80. And then we always try and match it together with other mons like Lapras. I think Lapras is 85.
Right.
So, yeah, with Dracozord, with those crazy, like you can max Thunder or you can max Draco Meteor, and that can be very, very offensive if you maybe set it up with Meteor Beam, and then at +1, you can potentially do more damage than a Lapras.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the scores we gave this team is pretty even. I think that makes sense. This does have some potential to sort of improve, maybe in terms of traits, or they really need to work very hard to work each matchup to try and win games.
I would agree with that. Alrighty, up next we have Ted coaching the Pummeling Lickilickys. Shout out to the logo change. I like it a lot better than the last one, personally, myself. This team is very fast. First glance at the speed tier bracket right there. Almost the entire draft breaks above 90. There's only a couple being a lot slower, which was like Togepi, which speed doesn't matter. You're just clicking follow me usually anyways. And then Cradily and Weezing fall below that. This is your... I don't know if we saw it in Platinum, but yeah, Regigigas Weezing makes an appearance here, which is always just an intimidating threat to kind of look at as the opponent. But it also kind of has its downsides in terms of like it is fairly easy to prep for because it's kind of linear, and you kind of have to expect Protect on the Weezing and just like kind of predict when they're going to use Protect and play around that. I don't know. As far as restricteds go, Dialga's an interesting choice, and Cosmog's really just there for points. But unfortunately, Ted does have 8 points remaining. There's just no other mythicals, I think, beside maybe Meltan.
Oh.
I don't know if Meltan got drafted or if it would really even like benefit him at all. But yeah, overall, it's a very decent team. I like it a lot, actually. I think Moltres Kanto, like the Kanto form, doesn't get enough respect, personally. It's just as bulky as, or it can be kind of just as bulky as the Galar form in some ways, but it's even just a little more offensive. I think just the way this team lines up as far as immunities go, I think is phenomenal. I think having Lightning Rod paired with like Moltres and Inteleon and Zapdos Galar is really strong, but then having the water immunity with Cradily as well, I think it's super cool if positioned correctly. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I think Gigas Weezing isn't fantastic in draft. It shines when you have completely different game plans, where it's hard to prep for Gigas and something else at the same time. One of the other really strong mons, being Zapdos, kind of makes it overlap a little, as it's also a physical threat with the same base speed. The only thing that just doesn't work against Zapdos, which works against Gigas, is like Darm, for example. But the team definitely looks good. I'm not a huge fan of the Galar Weezing specifically with Gigas, because you can't just max Steel Spike it and tank the Gigas hits better. But it's just nice for the rest of the team, as there was no Fairy type yet, and the Misty Surge really helps. Also, Raichu, in my opinion, is one of the most versatile support mons in draft. It's just fantastic and has 110 base speed. It's just great. And if you need to be even faster speed control, you can have Icy Wind on Inteleon and stuff. I might have undervalued the team a little bit, to be honest, in the ratings, but it's not too bad. I just kind of honed in on the Gigas Weezing, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, it's another rating where I'm in the middle, Julian's at the bottom, and Evan's fairly high up.
I do have some respect for this team.
I actually like it a lot too, and I didn't mention earlier, but I think Soak and Inteleon can actually play a decent role here, paired with like Cradily, for example, because I really think Cradily is a very underrated like offensive mon. With like access to max ooze, like some meteor beam buffs. I mean, it can easily stack up to +2 or +3 special attack. So if you pair that with like a fast soak user like Inteleon, you can just clean boards really quick if set up properly. But yeah.
So my one-liner for the team is it's just a Weezing Gigas team with a few good birds. So hopefully those birds can sort of come into play. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, because Ted's in chat. Because Ted always drafts Lickilickys. Like, did he get sniped, and then that's why he kind of looked towards this Wheezing Gigas mode as sort of an alternative? I'm not sure if he was forced to do it during draft, because he kind of always relies on that kind of powerful normal type mon that can Dynamax. I think that's kind of his style. Then to me, this team has limited Dynamax options. Like, the options can be predictable, especially when Dialga becomes tricky to use without Dynamax. And then I look through the team, and only Zapdos Gala potentially has the best like max Steel Spike next to Dialga, and then somehow it can boost Dialga and boost its body presses at the same time. Then to me, the Regigigas mode would naturally demand more respect than the Dynamax Inteleon mode, and then sometimes you might sort of deduce that the Inteleon is going to be support. So it's quite easy for opponents to prep to outspeed, because all you need to do is outspeed that Regigigas speed tier. If you have a very clear Inteleon mode, then you can put more EVs into HP or attack, and just EV just to outspeed one Regigigas with the Wheezing on the field. Then some things to note for this Wheezing. It's quite creative. Maybe your Wheezing can sort of come in a few weeks being Misty Terrain, but unfortunately Misty Terrain doesn't benefit your Zapdos because you can still get Will-O-Wisp, right? Because it's off the ground. And also be very, very careful of this neutralizing gas if you do have it, and if you're forced to switch in your Raichu or your Credilly, then the Lightning Rod and the Storm Drain will kind of become null, and then that might screw with some of your strategies that you want to try and pull off.
I would love to see an Assault Vest Wheezing with like Poison Fairy, Fire, Electric coverage. I got exposed to that a while ago, and I want to see it used in draft. In our league particularly, very bad, but yeah, overall it's a cool draft. I think it's very unique, and it has a couple different like gimmicky cool strategy you could do. It just, I don't want to say it's luck based, but like I said, it's very heavily based on positioning and trying to make like a lot of that work. Or even like you said, Dialga's kind of tricky to use without Dynamax. It's kind of just like a fairly bulky, maybe a Trick Room setter for like Cradily or something.
Speaking of Trick Room, I think somehow like Togepi needs to put in a lot of work. If team needs to commit to a Trick Room mode, then at the same time, if this team wants to go fast, then it kind of has to ride on the shoulders of Raichu, and I'm not sure that whether Raichu alone, I know it gets a lot of coverage moves, I know it's very flexible, but I'm not sure if Raichu alone can sort of carry the team on its shoulders for this current team, right?
Yeah, overall, we spread our scores out fairly well, so it's alright. But yeah, next up we got Dylan G coaching the Royal Kingdras. This is another returning coach from Pearl. This was the runner-up finalist for Pearl, so just along with Chad, moved up to Diamond this season. And round one, we actually see a Groudon this time. We did not see a Groudon at all in Platinum. This is a very interesting Sun team. There's no Venusaur, which I believe we already kind of covered that Venusaur team in this division, so they kind of had to make up a new plan for Sun. And yeah, Charizard's a good option in my opinion for that. I'm not personally I'm not the biggest fan of Charizard, but I think Solar Power next to Groudon, it can do absurd amount of damage, and Groudon kind of covers some of the weaknesses Charizard has for the most part, aside from like water obviously. And then Necrozma as the mythical is pretty solid. The team's got a fairly diverse speed tier range, nothing below 40 except for Pincurchin, which I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this team is very specially oriented. It has a couple like physical hard hitters with like Groudon and Rhyperior, but yeah, it's gonna attack very specially. And I do think Pincurchin's very underrated in draft. We only have it tiered at 9 because it hasn't done much in our league, but setting the Electric Terrain and then like it has a strong like Sucker Punch. You can run physical sets on it and like Dynamax. Like I've seen games elsewhere where it's swept on its own. It's a very like underrated Dynamax target in my opinion. And then Araquanid for like a water absorb immunity and whatnot. I think Quash is going to be very valuable on this team as well from Sableye. But what are your guys' thoughts?
this team is way too slow. I don't like it.
Mhm.
Also, a Regranit is just useless in Sun. It only has strong water moves, and you can't even use them if you bring a Groudon.
Yeah, I think it's
Only way. Oh, sorry.
I think it's solely there for the water immunity. Honestly, I think it's one of the more viable water absorbed Pokemon that aren't too low on the tier list, if that makes sense. So I don't know.
I don't know, the water, I wouldn't be too worried as you have the sun, which weakens it, also Maractus. To me, Arachnid looks like a sweeper. But yeah, the only effective way to get up Trick Room is basically Necrozma. It gets good support with Sableye and Clefable, but then you would have to switch out into your Arachnid or Rhyperior. At that point, I think it's just better to sweep with Necrozma, just max it with the weakness policy or whatever. It's a little bit awkward to me. I can't figure out how it works best. At least the Rhyperior has Lightning Rod for Charizard, which is pretty cool.
I also just think, I believe if I'm not mistaken, Dylan had a very successful season with Araquanid and Pearl, so I think the goal was to just kind of bring that back and see what he can do with it again. But yeah, I think even like Quash plus Rhyperior is going to be very threatening, because Rhyperior just hits so hard, and so like, giving it that speed advantage to make its potential threats move even slower, I think is fantastic. But
or Clefable, Clefable with Follow Me instead of Quash also works.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, my one-liner for this team is, you've seen I think this coach was sort of unfortunately sniped off the Venusaur, and then with that turn 1 Groudon pick, they kind of have to scramble and put on a team together. Therefore, this is a Groudon team with 0 threat of sleep. Because not only do you have like electric terrain, right, to stop sleep, you also have a Maractus that does not get access to sleep powder.
Right.
However, Zack really correctly like identified that this Groudon Charizard mode is definitely going to be very oppressive. We've seen that around in Series 8, right, where you just straight up lead with Charizard to threaten that very powerful Max Airstream, then your Groudon, maybe with a White Herb, follows up with crazy Precipice Blades. But they do have to hit. Then it's interesting to see that Necrozma was picked, maybe because of the points. But I think, I went to research, Necrozma gets access to Earth Power and Flash Cannon, so it could be interesting to try and activate Dynamax Necrozma with Steel Spike and Quick to boost your defenses. Then I do agree that the Groudon team seems kind of sus with Araquanid and Rhyperior, but the more I look at it, I think this Sableye really is the glue of the team, because sometimes you don't even need to switch in your Groudon in dire situations. You just use your Sableye to sort of set up Rain Dance for your Araquanid, or automatically set up Rain Dance for Charizard, since the Sableye cannot be realistically, like, it cannot be taunted by opposing Prankstermon, and it cannot get faked out. So the potential like Sableye plus very offensive attacker mode with the threat of Quash can be really, really very useful. And to me, the Raichu Alola seems like that interesting answer to opposing water types that want to threaten and counter Charizard. Yeah, but then it's the Raichu Alola, it's not that complex, because it's like Charizard is not only weak to water, right? It can also be weak to rock, and then it's very hard to ward off those rock threats. Yeah, and I think it's really sad that Maractus gets quite a limited move pool. I've seen someone in our Discord complaining about it, but I guess it does get after you in Sun with Chlorophyll and Acupressure, which could be kind of fun as a sort of YOLO mode. Like maybe if you have a meme week that you can afford to do it, I think it can be quite fun to see Maractus pop off. And Maractus does have that Storm Drain ability that can discourage your opponent from changing the weather to go for max geysers.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think, as far as ratings go, I was very torn on giving it like a 6 or a 7. I think I went 7 just because of like this team just packs such a punch in certain matchups, and I agree with Julien that like speed tier wise, this is like a fairly like mid range like to slow speed team. But I think just Sableye, like you said, I think Sableye being like the main glue and like support here, it kind of makes up for that loss of speed, because you can just make whatever threats that are outspeed you slower than you. So I think I don't know. I think 7's an okay score for the most
So,
part.
yes, Lumaris is saying it kind of has 6 PSS. I'm totally gonna like popularize it in draft leagues,
Yeah.
right? When talking about power rankings, because this team does have like a few combinations that you kind of forced to bring Raichu plus Pincurchin, and then to some extent Rhyperior plus Charizard because you want that Rhyperior's Lightning Rod to protect it. But at the same time, you might need Miraculous's Storm Drain to kind of protect the rest of the mon. So I would say Dylan might find a bit of trouble choosing the quote-unquote correct 6 mons to bring into every week's matchup.
Yeah, but I think he'll do good. Like he's a very skilled coach based off what we saw last season. So I'm interested to see how he coaches and plays out his season.
True, and this team certainly has a lot of tools for it, especially in that stable line.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, up next we have All Day coaching the Los Angeles Linoones. So as far as draft picks go, this team is like. They snatched a Series 9 VGC team essentially off the fourth.
That was my notes too.
Yeah, the first 4 picks. I mean, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Lando, Tapu Fini, back to back to back. Like, I'm impressed that even happened. I'm surprised none of those got taken in between across the other 13 coaches in the draft. But yeah, I mean those staple, and that's the thing too. They're not even like, I mean, Rillaboom and Landorus are very linear for the most part. You can run like special Landorus sets. But this team is very diverse. I mean, between having 4 of the most popular VGC mons, and then you have Mew, which can do anything. Oh, Regieleki too. I missed Regi. Yeah, that's 5 VGC staples. Speed tier wise, I mean, like between Eliki, that's really the fastest thing. The team kind of drops tremendously in speed after that. But attack wise, this team is very offensive. It applies so much pressure with Intimidate. Terrain from Tapu Fini to prevent like status on all the heavy physical attackers there. As we discussed in Platinum, Necrozma Dawn Wings doesn't do too much, I don't think, but it's an affordable restricted, and it kind of covers some of the types that All Day didn't currently have with Ghost and Psychic, aside from Mew. But they do have 3 points left over, so I mean trades are always possible somewhere along the lines. But what are your guys' thoughts?
All around solid looking team with absolute top tier VGC usage mods. Like basically anything on that team could Dynamax, well, except Cutie Flight. Sork is also bad Dynamax, but like it could do it if it wants.
Right.
With Mew thrown in the mix, it's just really hard to figure out what exactly to expect each week. Catch up, like even Surf Time with Rifini into Weakness Policy Incineroar, anything could happen. There's just only one Pokemon above the 100 speed threshold, but with it being Regieleki, it's still decent speed control.
Yeah, for sure.
You just have to hit your Electrowebs.
Yeah.
No bikini, yes.
And yeah, Zack totally took the words right out of my mouth. This is the team in the whole RPDL draft that looks the most like a VGC team.
Yeah.
And I would say this is like the quote-unquote best Fire Water Grass core of all time. Putting it together with a Lando and a Eleki and a Mew, you can easily make sort of like a VGC team, and I think these 6 Pokemon, like, you can feel comfortable bringing these 6 Pokemon into every week's matchup. So that's what VGC players do. We form a team to try and combat all possible matchups from all possible opponents, right?
Yeah.
Then this is the second Necrozma Dawn team, and then this time, instead of Wendell drafted Necrozma Dawn with Spectria, pairing it like doubling on that Dark and Ghost type weakness, but this time it's with Mew, and to me Mew is an edge more dynamic and more unpredictable than a Spectria.
Right.
So this could be more useful for All Day. Then this is a case of the very stereotypical top-heavy team that we see in quite a few drafts, in quite a few draft leagues. But like Julien said, there's still a lot of room for creativity and innovation. There can be random weakness policy, although in your mind you can think that these mons are mons that do a certain thing well. Like Regieleki, it just spams electric moves well. Rillaboom, it just goes for grassy glide. But they do have that option to just surprise Dynamax and take important KOs. A lot of people always forget about Rillaboom's D-Max move that can bypass Mimikyu's disguise.
Yeah, and then I do want to kind of touch on as well. Loomer has pointed out in the chat that the team does kind of seem like certain mons are very like weak special defensively wise, and I mean there's so many Pokemon on this team that can easily just slap an Assault Vest on and kind of fix that. I mean, like, we've historically, I mean, VGC draft, no matter what, we've seen Assault Vest, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Landorus, all in the past. So I think especially, I mean, that's definitely a very valid point, but I think it can be kind of handled for the most part.
Oh, well said. And then also today I learned, well, Rhydon doesn't solid rock. And
Interesting.
Like, it's not that strong of a Eviolite mod in my opinion.
No.
Especially when Incineroar shares the ground fighting and most importantly the water weakness. So I don't really see this Rhydon coming, especially when you already have a super solid ground type in the form of Landorus. Then one downfall I have for this team is the abundance of obvious physical attackers. Right off the bat, I mean, Dynamax Elecki can be a little bit cheesy, and then Tapu Fini, we historically know that it does not put off that much offensive pressure from the get-go. So this obvious abundance of physical attackers might fall prey to something like Intimidate spam.
Right.
I guess Fini is useful to stop Will-O-Wisps. Yeah. Then this also makes it easy to deduce Mew's coverage moves. Almost always, I would expect this Mew to be a special set.
Yeah. No, I agree
and
with
then,
you.
That said, I think the Sock is a interesting pickup. It's been hyped up quite a lot in something like UGA. And I think Sock with Inner Focus can maybe go for something like Scarf coaching into a potential Dynamax Incineroar or Rillaboom or Landorus. And this team can just go crazy.
Yeah, that'd be super cool for sure. But yeah, rating wise, I think I give it an 8.5. I think this team can be phenomenal, and I think there's a lot of room for like potential like sets, and even with it being like VGC staples, there's a lot of creativity that could go into it and actually play a vital role. I think a lot of people are gonna look at like the 5 more used mons and kind of just assume like they're gonna bring staple like Parting Shot, Fake Out, Incineroar, but that's not the case. I mean, they can really do some crazy stuff with this team.
Well said. I gave it a 7.7 because I understand Julien's gripe about the fastest mon being Elecki, but right after that you have like Mew. So in some sense, if you sort of ignore the Elecki, you have a ground type offensive attacker, then you can just sort of account for just the Mew speed tier or just the Landorus speed tier.
Yeah.
Then you can afford to put a lot of your EVs into bulk, and then this team might not appreciate it that much.
For sure.
My threshold to count something fast is usually exactly 101 speed, because with the additional mythicals we have in this league, there's so many more base 100s added in to the many that are already there.
Which is very...
But yeah, 100 is fast, but yeah, I like 101s way more.
101 outspeeds the 100s, there you go.
Exactly, it's the perfect speed tier.
Alrighty, up next we have Dale coaching the Washington Waifus. So here's our Kyogre team of this division, and it's got the infamous Torn Ogre set here, which we've seen a couple times if people get the chance to get their hand on it. They also have Serena, which is quite interesting. I never actually, I don't think, seen Serena paired with Kyogre up until Series 10 started rolling around, and so it seems like it's kind of just been everyone's like go-to now. Because even Dan Chunks and Platinum, I believe, had Serena with Kyogre as well. But yeah, this team offensively just applies so much pressure between Kyogre, Cinderace, Serena, Glastrier, Kingdra, and Grimmsnarl can Dynamax, like we've stated before. But yeah, it's very diverse. It's got bulk where it needs it. It can be offensive with either stat. Speed tiers vary tremendously. I think this is a very well drafted team. What do you guys think?
You just can't go wrong with the Kyogre team.
Right.
This one even has Tornadus, a Swift Swimmer, Serena to block the Fake Out on the Kyogre that can't max, the Grassy Glide, the Rain that protects the Glastria, Grimmsnarl can just support anything it wants here. just Cinderace and Glastria for the hard-hitting physical Pokemon, and then especially those two that can just stack up Steel Spike and Quake Boost on the Porygon too, which can clutch out every end game if it just has a few boosts. Just the weaknesses are also pretty well spread out. The only thing I'm missing, as most Kyogre teams that also have Tornadus or Celesteela or whatever, something with the Lightning Rod. But the team looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I think Cinderace covers, like, the team doesn't have too much. Glastrier has a really good move pool, but as far as like type coverage, the team's very like this is almost all the Pokemon are like mono typed. They don't have a lot of dual typings. Cinderace basically gives the team all of the type coverage that it needed, that it like lacked before, in my opinion. So I think Cinderace fits really well on this team.
Nice. That's what I say in my notes. Like lack of a ground and quote unquote steel type. I feel like the ground type could be a bit detrimental. That's the biggest downfall for this team right off the bat. Then I also mentioned like my one-liner team is that this is a coach that is a fan of single type mons, but these are really phenomenal single type mons that you can never underestimate.
Yeah,
100%. The similarities from this team to Dan Chang's team in the Platinum division is that there is that Kyogre plus Serena core plus a strong ice type. So then this one has Glastria, and then Dan had Mamoswine, plus a strong Prankstermon. So this one has Grimmsnarl, which is totally the cherry on top, right? The team is so bulky, the P2 is so bulky, and you add a Grimmsnarl to make matters worse. Versus Dan Chang's Sableye. So on paper, I would say this is hands down the best bulky offense team of the league. So this is a fantastic masterclass of a successful draft based on Kyogre as a first pick, and letting Kyogre go like so early, right? So late in draft.
Being 10th pick is unheard of. Usually it's top 3, like one of the first 3 picks in the league.
I made a mistake with this 24 here. Then letting Kyogre go in what 10th pick, that's insane. And even a Porygon 2 and a Tornadus and a Serena and a Glastria. So I think this Coach Dale is absolutely running away with all these value picks. Oh my god, I have another analogy here. It's like this coach went to the farmer's market with just $20 and he wants to buy a fish, but he managed to bargain and get like a whole 3-course meal. Then you can just enjoy for himself.
That's funny.
So, I was saying like, who needs Dynamax Mythical anyway, right?
This team carries enough pressure that like the Cosmo, it's honestly just a free slot for the Mythical.
They could just bring Cosmom and still easily win.
They could just bring it to team preview and just only use the other 5. Yeah, it's crazy.
Lumeri said he bribed the other 13 100%.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
But
but then every team kind of has its weakness. I really believe in that. I think what's important for opponents when playing against this team is just figuring out what items they have and then adapt accordingly, because some mons can come with a surprise. Like you don't really need to give your Tornadus a sash, you can pass it to someone else. As long as you figure that out, you can find this team's weakness. In a sense, you can come up with a very strong electric move coverage, because I understand that electric mons with step electric moves are few and far to come, and then like you have a Zapdos, it might fall prey to just the Glastria mode. So with a strong like maybe weakness policy boosted electric move to try and take down Kyogre on turn 1, that could be really useful.
Right.
Just don't fall prey to this like thunderous Kyogre lead. Then how to beat Rillaboom 101. You lead Tornadus and Kyogre, then you hard switch into Serena, then you go for Hurricane and kill the Rillaboom.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, overall rating wise, I mean, pretty even across the board. All gave it 9s, which is very rare for us. We're usually pretty different. So yeah, very very good draft. Very well done, Dale.
Okay, let's go.
So alrighty, up next we have Corkboy with the Minneapolis Marshadows. And I think this is the first time out of 3 seasons they finally were able to get their mascot. Which is super cool to see. Marshadow's phenomenal. Julien can't stress that enough.
Yes.
And this team is very similar to how my team kind of started. Very similar in Platinum with the Sandcore and like Comfy and stuff. I mean, different picks obviously, but I kind of had the same mindset. Base Kyurem's a very interesting restricted in my opinion. I think it's one of the cheapest restricteds in our tier list in general. But I think it can still be really good. It's very offensive. It's got, base 90 defense and special defense aren't bad by any means. Especially paired with the 125 like base HP. So it's a hard hitting ice type. Tyranitar with sand, obviously. It does have a slightly slower mode with Bronzong, so they can run Trick Room if that's the option that they feel is more suitable. Very like bulky on some things. I mean, overall, I think it's a very interesting draft. My biggest gripe is Guzzlord. I don't like Guzzlord myself. I've never been able to use it well or seen it really used well, so I'm curious to see how that does. But what are your guys' thoughts?
It has decent speed, it has a decent TR option. I'm just personally missing a stab, or at least a strong max Airstream or Tailwind instead, just one of those. Like, Marshadow could run Airstream of Acrobatics, but it's just so weak, and maxing Marshadow is a big waste in my opinion. Yeah, team looks good. The only thing I just can't wrap my head around what the Gaslight and Rebombi are for. Like, unless Rebombi is really just there to speed swap the Gaslight or the Primarina or something.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of points for something I personally don't understand.
Yeah.
But hey, can't go wrong with the Marshadow. Can't just win games on its own.
I was gonna
Still a good
say
team.
speed swap for sure, and then Comfy is the same thing, 14 points, but it basically it can proc like a policy for Guzzlord or Tyranitar. I guess if you wanted
Oh wait, did I say Comfy? I meant Rebombi. I don't know what I said.
No, you said Rebombi. I said
okay.
Comfy though. But yeah, it could also do like a policy on Kyurem if it really came down to that. So like I think it falls into a decent place. But is it worth 14 points? I'm not sure in this situation. But I do want to. The last thing I want to touch on is looking at the type chart. They have 5 types where they have 4 weaknesses for. So I think that can be concerning. They kind of have to prep really well for certain matchups that they're like fairly weak to.
I'm gonna touch on that in my notes. So my hot take for this team is that, you know, on paper, on face value it looks like a sand team, but you actually got debated because this is actually a comfy team. Everything, most of their mons, right, want to get proc a policy with comfy, and it's very difficult to stop because you need a fake out mon that is faster than the base 100 speed tier. Marshadow, we can just go fast. I believe Marshadow gets Airstream, right? And then you can just proc
Acrobatics.
Yeah, so you can just proc a policy, Acrobatics or Airstream. Who cares about speed swap from the Rebombi? Marshadow is already faster, right? Then you can even, since you're already activating your weakness policy, then you can give Marshadow more EVs in terms of the HP or defense. Yeah, then the similarities with Torque's team and Zack's Sand team is that both teams still lack a defiant or competitive mon, and this makes it hard to activate the Excadrill to sort of boost the team as soon as possible with Quakes and Steel Spike. Spoiler alert, there will be another Sand team, and that Sand team got it right because they drafted a defiant mon. So the Dragon type choice here, as compared to Zack's team, is Kyurem instead of Eternatus, which is actually too slow for my liking at base 95, so hopefully Torque can sort of pull off some Kyurem strategies, because Kyurem cannot be underestimated with a very powerful like special attack stat, right? Then over here, I feel like this team, I would say, doesn't have fake out. Grookey doesn't really count. You won't realistically bring it every week, and then additionally, it does not have Tailwind. So I think this team might struggle against hyper-offensive teams or a well-played Tailwind strategy from another opponent. So Comfy have to go over time with its work and always have to heal the opponent. You know, maybe Grookey can just sort of come in and with a small cameo to help Comfy heal more, but at what cost? Because the opponent's hyper-offensive threats might be too crazy to overcome. Right. And I really think that this Comfy Marshadow mode is something that we are always going to see. This is the team's saving grace. It's so threatening. Marshadow's perfect arsenal of coverage moves gonna just help the team just go very far. And then I think Marshadow can sort of give like the partner boost. Like maybe you proc the Marshadow, then Comfy actually accidentally goes down. then you can bring in someone else to give the partner a speed boost, maybe the Curium.
Right. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think this team has a lot of power to it. It's another one that very heavily depends on positioning for the most part. I do think Comfy can be very easy to prep for aside from Fake Out. I mean, like, you can't really stop the Draining Kiss with Flower Veil, but 9 times out of 10, most people usually just put Babiri Berry on it. Like, there's not a lot of good item choices for Comfy, in my opinion. So I think as far as that goes, if you can read the Babiri Berry, you can bring like some type of poison coverage if you have it, or you could just hit it with like a strong stab move instead to play around the potential Babiri. So I'm not sure, but yeah, very very good draft in my opinion.
Yeah, one last thing I have to say is like I always try and find weaknesses in teams, right?
Yeah.
And then over here, looking at the type chart, this team is missing Step, Fire, and Step Grass move. Again, Rookie doesn't count. So they might fall prey to mons like Durant, right? Or Rhyperior, because they do need that sort of 4x coverage to do it. And then this means that Marshadow will kind of have to put in extra work. And then like it's also, with no Step Grass move, you might fall prey to Gastrodon or Swampert. But thank goodness nobody drafted Gastrodon or Swampert across all 3 divisions.
Right. Yeah, well done. Pretty even.
Rookie can't even KO Kyogre with the Serena on the team, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's funny. Alrighty, so up next we have the Absolian coaching the absolute Absolian. Big fan of Absol. Over here we have a very fast team for the most part, with like Mewtwo at base 130, Naganadel base 121, some other faster ones. Not a really not any like there's no slow like Trick Room core whatsoever. This team is very special offensive. There's not a lot of physical threats here. I mean, Mewtwo like is the highest with base 110, and there's not a lot of times you'll run a physical Mewtwo set, and it can't Dynamax. So Goodra with like Sap Sipper would be the only like physical option I can imagine running, really. A I didn't see Cobalion. And they have Whimsicott. So yeah, they could just do beat up Cobalion. So that's really their only physical option, which is interesting. I'm curious to see how they do. Honestly, I don't know how you guys feel.
Definitely looks interesting. It has some pretty good support options spread around.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really heavily leaning towards special, which you said, and has a lot of overlapping weaknesses. But it's super fast, has a few decent weakness policy options, especially with like Drizzile for Ice Shard onto Naganadel or Gorykiss or whatever. It could even do Tatulele, what's it called? Brutal Swing next to Cobalion, break a Sash and get the attack boost. I just don't feel like it doesn't have too much variety, which makes it easier to prep for. I could be wrong there.
Oh, yeah. Immediately I typed, look, send help. This team desperately needs a normal type and a dark type. Because look at those.
Ghost weaknesses.
Ghost, right? That's insane. Like a normal type would easily sort of solve that, because not just easily, I guess, but then it would solve to some extent because your opponent won't freely go for max Phantasm against you, and a dark type would solve a lot of problems in terms of snarl, like damage reduction, or just helping the team in general. And then another interesting note for this team is this is the first ever across so many drafts that I've seen. This is the first ever team that has a double fantasy core. There's a Fairy Dragon Steel on one side, and then you can pluck out another Fairy Dragon Steel.
Yeah.
What in the world? I've never seen this before.
I haven't seen that either. And double grass and no fire type. It's very
which kind of begs the question, what is this team trying to achieve? I'm not very, very sure.
Yeah.
And then with this you have a lot of double types. So the double grass type and the double dragon type, it makes this team hate like water and grass types with a passion, right? You have so many water and grass type resist, but to what, at what cost? I mean, you sort of have a good matchup against the Kyogre team, I guess. But I went to check, but we'll never know because these two teams don't meet in the regular season.
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the biggest offensive thing I didn't touch on either would be they do have like the Tapu Lele setting terrain for Mewtwo, so they can run a very like high pressure expanding forest set, which would be
Side
kind of
spam.
cool. And then how you touched on needing a dark or a normal type, I definitely agree because they also have 6 fighting resist, so they have plenty of switch ins and things to pair with a normal or dark type for sure.
Yeah. Then I was thinking the Calyrex pick might be interesting. It's very, very rare, right, that you
Oh,
see
yeah.
someone draft a Calyrex. Then yeah, I guess Dynamax Calyrex can be interesting, but I feel like it's going to be very, very underwhelming.
I do
And
think,
this team,
yeah,
mhm.
I do think
And then
Unnerve.
this, oh,
I think
yeah, that-
I think Dynamaxing or just having it there for Unnerve for specific matchups for like Kabalion, for example, to sweep. That way things can't use like Babiri or like Chopal Berry or something, or like Charty Berry with like Max Rockfall, for example. So I think Unnerve can come in hand, but Mewtwo also carries that. So I don't know if Calyrex is really needed if Mewtwo can just bring Unnerve instead. But,
yeah, that's the thing. Like both of them are
Mhm.
psychic types. Then there is an extent of redundancy here. So I guess, but then again, it's very difficult to look for a mythical
Yeah.
trait, right? So I feel like Absolian is kind of stuck with this Calyrex for the whole league. Yeah, unless he makes some major overhaul.
Yeah, they would have to overhaul the team because they have 0 points, and I'm not 100% sure what mythicals are left in Diamond Division. Yeah.
From our ratings, it seems like this team is kind of average, and it kind of makes sense because, certainly, sure, this team has some stuff going for it, like Whimsicott Togekiss, Cobalion, Naganadel, Gudra, and these are very strong mons in general. Then lastly, based on my experience, I would say the team lacks ground coverage. I went to do the research. The only mon that has ground type coverage in this team is Gudra.
Yeah.
Even AG Stash doesn't get access to a ground move. So the electric types, they just have to avoid Gudra, maybe avoid a bit of side spam, and then they really do well against this team. Possibly Dynamax Regieleki, but maybe not. I'm just going a bit too far.
Well, if it's physical, it can KO the Gudra.
Right.
Just Giga Impact Regieleki.
I would say Zapdos will have time. Regular Zapdos.
Oh, gotcha. But yeah, very interesting team. Up next, we have Engie coaching the Celebes Celebis. This is another team that finally drafted Deontay, and I'm curious to see how Engie uses it. Speed tiers wise, this team's very slow. Nothing above 100, but it has several. Not really several trick room. I'm not 100% sure, like, kind of what the strategy is here. I'll be honest. The team's very bulky. Extremely bulky. It's another Zygarde complete set, which we discussed in Platinum. It hasn't done too well in the past, so overall, I'm not 100% certain what the strategies are here. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for Slowbro currently. I think Dual Blade is a very cool pick for 4 points. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Hey, did I do the math wrong? Like, why does it say 17 points remaining?
It's
No,
correct.
no.
That is absolutely correct.
What?
He has so many points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this team could be one of the top teams with just some traits to upgrade it, in my opinion. But yeah, currently it's just... Firstly, this is way too slow for my taste. Like, 97 is the fastest one there. I hate it. It can reliably set up Trick Room, in my opinion, with Slowbro that can't be taunted and Yancy. The slowest one, Slowbro, and the Blade aren't the most threatening, but they're good. Yeah, since the speed is so cluttered together, you can't just, like if you're the opponent, make your fast one so bulky, since you don't need a lot of speed investment. There's a lot of good mons that are super threatening. I just don't think it's there yet. But with the 70 points, you can buy some serious upgrades to the team.
Yeah.
Also, Ruffle is a huge threat. It just has such an abysmal speed here. I hope we can make it work and just sweep with it, because it definitely has the capability.
Yeah, for 2-2 for sure.
I understand that NJ was extremely adamant that he Ruffler, yeah, because he's the host of the Little Cup,
Yeah.
a VGC Little Cup tournament. Yeah, shout outs to him there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess these 17 points can sort of be used elsewhere. I'm not sure. You see, you guys are completely right about the speed stat. Their average speed stat is 69.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice.
And I would say that this average stat would be quite misleading once again because of that Zygarde complete, that double HP stat. But with these remaining 17 points, and I feel like a few good traits, look, the average base, like the base stat total average is really so high, then it could certainly like improve the team way more.
Yeah.
Then
the team definitely has like it has good components. Like I think Kangaskhan's decent. I think scrappy fake out's always going to be nice to have in draft. Articuno Kanto is not something that's been used too often, but I think it does have some cool. I'm pretty sure it's one of the few like Kanto birds that still has Tailwind, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's very bulky for. I mean, it has a really bad like defensive typing, being electric ice. It has so many weaknesses, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what he does with that as well.
Honestly, in my opinion, in terms of tools, this team really collected quite a lot of them. It's quite impressive. At the same time, Zygarde can be quite an important like end game like situation to go for, and then this team sort of protected it quite well with a lot of good ice type resist. And I think it moves like fake out from Kangaskhan, even scrappy fake out, then Tailwind, Doublade with some like priority Shadow Sneak, and Urshifu Rapid with the potential to coaching. It could sort of spice this team up and give it way more options to approach the matchups each week.
No, I definitely think there's options there. I also think like Urshifu Rapid Strike can like Aqua Jet into Deontay or Aqua Jet into like Rotom, for example. If he needs a lot of like stab like fire or electric damage or Rocket Fairy for a specific coach. So I don't know. I think there's definitely some tech here that we may just be missing, or some thought process here. But yeah, with 17 points, I think there's definitely some room. There's definitely 100% some room for improvement. But
I would say like not so far as improvement. I guess it's more of an upgrade.
Yeah.
From the score we see on the screen, like in my opinion, this is a very well built team. I would go so far as to say that this Fire Water Grass core is extremely solid and will certainly help NJ win a few games. And then a lot of the mons have inherent bulk that can allow them to sort of set up and do more damage in terms of body press and iron defense and body press. And then for Zygarde, coil and 1000 arrows.
Yeah, so I agree. I think there's potential, like you said.
Then one quick thing to note is that this is the team throughout all three divisions with the most number of dual type mons.
Almost every single one. Yeah, that's absurd.
And that kind of helped it collect the amount of resistances that it requires, because you can see that most of their weaknesses, despite being a lot, they do have the same or even more number of resistances to cover up for it. So hopefully that can work well for NJ.
Yeah, for sure. No, best of luck to them. I really hope they can make the team work out. Part of me kind of hopes they don't make any trades and they make a statement by having 17 points left over and still doing well. So
that would be
so cool. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're at our final team.
Alrighty. Last but not least, we have Orange Soda, coach of the Cardiff Komalas. And here is our Zacian pick. And yeah, believe it or not, another Zacian, I really expected it to be one of the first couple picks, and it made it all the way down to 14 round one. And I think again, I don't know if it wasn't platinum, but Indeedee female paired with it's pretty cool to see. And this is the sand team that Evan had touched on, with Hippowdon this time, Dracovish, Stoutland, and then they have Devil to pair with the Indeedee and stuff. It's a very fast team, especially if you consider like Sand Rush Dracovish. And it can land a lot of offensive pressure very quickly. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, this is probably the fastest team in the entire division. Zacian, 2 Unburden mons that are already way over 100 base speed. So they even outspeed stuff when it's in Tailwind. It's absurd. 2 Sand Rushers, an amazing max airstreamer, the best redirector available. It also has beat up to make prep even more annoying. It will probably struggle with Trick Room if it gets set up, but they have the tools to stop it by just KOing the Pokemon with the power they have. Apart from Fairy with 3 weaknesses, only 1 resistance, that they look really spread out in what they resist and are weak to. This is easily my favorite team over both divisions we talked about today.
Right.
Nice. Looking at the draft order, I feel like this is beautifully picking up very important tools along the way, sniping that in DD before it goes off to anyone else from 1 to 14, and then picking up very good and reliable Sand Rush users that sometimes don't even need to carry that Sand Rush ability. And finally, we have a Sand team with a Defiant Mon. Very good. Well done.
I'm a little jealous, just a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say, I also want to say that both Sand players, like both the coaches that draft Sand are quite polite, because they kind of like give each other good ones, like Hita and Extra, extremely good combination, and then Hippowdon with Stoutland. I think that's something that cannot be underestimated, purely because of Hippowdon's immense bulk.
Right. Yeah, this is easily, I think, my favorite team in this division, as my rating says, with a 9.5. I think this is somewhat, there's so many options here. I think Keldeo fits really nicely as well, with beat up Salazzle again in this division, as we saw with Holy J and Platinum. Yeah, there's not a lot of like really bad or like things to say or questioning things here. All of their weaknesses are covered by resistances.
Oh, hold up. As I have some things to say, I found a few weaknesses that can be exploited on this team. I think just one, I guess, like it has sort of a slight weakness to Fairy, because more often than not, you would bring Keldeo and Dracovic to a matchup. Maybe you just choose one. However, they don't really have a good resist into Fairy.
Right.
So once Salazzle is down, that Fairy Mon, be it a Togekiss or Zacian's here. Yeah, but be it like a Togekiss or some other strong Fairy type Mon, then they can just keep going crazy with just neutral max Star 4 or some other move into this team. Yeah, then I would say that this team also lacks important steel type coverage. I believe we don't see a mon, like a steel type mon, right? So but thankfully most of their mons carry a random steel type coverage move. Even Dracovic, even Thunderous, and Sceptile even has Iron Tail. So that could be cool. Then I would say the good value picks will allow for any mon to get chosen this for each week, and this allows for a lot of creativity and semi-unorthodox tags, because these are tags that we have seen before, and if opponents do their research, they jolly well should prepare for this, like in terms of how from the Stoutland or fake tears from Salazzle, it can get very detrimental if allowed to snowball. Then lastly, this team might struggle a bit in Trick Room, and it will need the Hippowdon to be the anchor of the team to stall the Trick Room out. Maybe with Slack Off, maybe with Yawn, even with like Body Press. So Hippowdon is particularly useful here, but against a very well played Trick Room team, especially the ones with the Ice Horses, this team, it might be quite scary against for this team to handle. And lastly, I said earlier, Thunderous and Indeedee was really fun for me to use in Season 3, right? And I slowly but surely came up, like I became more and more bold to use modest max special attack in DD, because after an Airstream boost, the Indeedee outspeeds quite a lot of important speed tiers, and like catching people off guard with a Sash, hyper offensive in DD with Thunderous's max Airstream support and max Darkness support was kind of cool and very useful for me. So
that sounds really cool. Yeah.
Some tips for Orange Soda.
But yeah, with the final rating between us three with a 9.1, yeah, very well executed draft. Yeah, not much else to say about that. But without being said, that is our Diamond division. So looking at our summary here, I believe that actually puts Orange Soda at the top with a 9.1, and then Dale right below with a 9. But
That's
yeah,
quite a big range. Too.
yeah, for sure. We got a wide range here, just like Platinum, and overall, like we said with Platinum as well, we keep saying that, but all of these teams are really well built. Even the lower rating ones, they just we just may not understand some of the strategies or thoughts or plans, just at first glance or on paper. So. Just take all of our opinions with a grain of salt. This is all just for fun. We all just want to wish you guys the best of luck. Enjoy your season. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.